The elderly couple lost everything in a house fire and had nowhere to go. Steve Harvey's surprise home reconstruction will restore your faith in humanity and prove that sometimes angels come in the form of TV hosts with big hearts. It was November 2022, and 76-year-old Robert Martinez and his wife Elena, 74, sat in a Red Cross emergency shelter in San Antonio, Texas, staring at a small box that contained everything they owned in the world. 3 weeks earlier, their home of 48 years had burned to the ground in an electrical fire, taking with it not just their possessions, but a lifetime of memories, family photographs, and the security they had built over nearly 5 decades. The fire had started at 3 a.m. on a cold October night, when faulty wiring in their 1960s era home sparked a blaze that consumed their modest but beloved house in less than 2 hours. Robert and Elena had barely escaped with their lives, fleeing in their pajamas as flames engulfed the only home they had known since 1975. Robert and Elena Martinez represented the American dream in its purest form. Robert had immigrated from Mexico in 1968 at age 22, speaking little English but possessing an unshakable work ethic. He had taken a job at a local manufacturing plant, working the night shift while Elena cleaned houses during the day to support their growing family. For 7 years, they had saved every penny they could, living in a tiny apartment while dreaming of owning their own home. In 1975, they bought their modest 3-bedroom house in San Antonio's west side for $18,000, a fortune for them at the time, but a symbol of everything they had worked to achieve in America. In that house, Robert and Elena had raised 4 children, Maria, Carlos, Sofia, and Miguel. They had celebrated first communions, quinceañeras, graduations, and weddings in their small living room. They had hosted countless family dinners where Elena's tamales and Robert's stories about the old country created memories that would last generations. The house had been more than just shelter. It had been the foundation of their family's identity, the place where American dreams were nurtured in Spanish and English, where traditions were preserved and new ones were created. Robert had worked at the same manufacturing plant for 42 years, never missing a day unless one of his children was sick. Elena had eventually started her own house cleaning business, building a reputation for honesty and hard work that kept her busy until she retired at 70. They had raised their children to value education, hard work, and family loyalty. All 4 children had graduated from high school, and 3 had gone to college. Maria became a nurse, Carlos a teacher, Sofia a social worker, and Miguel a police officer. By 2022, Robert and Elena were grandparents to 11 grandchildren and great-grandparents to 3 great-grandchildren. Their house had become the gathering place for every family celebration, the anchor that held 3 generations together. But the fire had changed everything in a single night. The electrical fire had been swift and merciless. By the time the fire department arrived, the house was fully engulfed in flames. Robert and Elena had escaped, but everything else was lost. Family photographs spanning 5 decades, Elena's wedding dress that she had hoped to pass down to her granddaughters, Robert's work awards and retirement gifts, the hand-carved furniture he had made over the years, and countless irreplaceable mementos from their life together. 48 years of memories gone in 2 hours, Elena had whispered as she watched their home reduced to ash and rubble. The aftermath had been devastating in ways they had never anticipated. Their homeowner's insurance, purchased decades earlier, was woefully inadequate for modern reconstruction costs. The policy covered only $45,000 in dwelling coverage, not nearly enough to rebuild a home that would cost $180,000 to replace in 2022. At their age, Robert and Elena couldn't qualify for a mortgage to cover the difference. Their children, despite their love and good intentions, were struggling with their own financial obligations, mortgages, student loans, and raising their own families in an increasingly expensive economy. "We want to help, Dad, but we just don't have $135,000, Carlos had explained through tears during a family meeting. "We're trying to figure out what we can do." The family had started a GoFundMe campaign that raised $12,000 from friends and community members, but it was far short of what was needed to rebuild. As weeks turned into months, Robert and Elena faced the heartbreaking reality that they might never be able to return to their neighborhood or recreate the home that had been the center of their family's universe. Maybe we should just find a small apartment, Elena said one evening in the shelter. Maybe we're too old to start over. No, mi amor, Robert replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. We didn't work this hard our whole lives to give up now. But privately, Robert was struggling with depression and a sense of defeat he had never experienced. At 76, he felt too old to rebuild and too proud to be a burden on his children. The story of Robert and Elena's tragedy came to light when Maria, their eldest daughter, decided to write to local news stations and anyone else who might be able to help. My parents are the most hard-working, generous people I know, Maria wrote. They came to this country with nothing and built a life through sacrifice and determination. They've helped every family member, every neighbor, every person who needed support. Now they need help, and we don't know where to turn. One of Maria's letters found its way to a producer at the Steve Harvey show, who was moved by the family's story. 6 weeks later, Robert and Elena received a phone call that would change everything. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, this is Janet Miller from the Steve Harvey show. We heard about your house fire, and Mr. Harvey would like to invite you to be guests on his show. Elena was confused. We're not famous. Why would Steve Harvey want us on his show? Mr. Harvey was moved by your story and wants to honor you for the life you've built and the family you've raised. Would you be willing to come to Chicago? Robert and Elena had watched Steve Harvey's shows for years and appreciated his values and his respect for family and hard work. If Mr. Harvey wants to meet us, we'll be honored, Robert said. 2 weeks later, Robert and Elena sat nervously in the green room of the Steve Harvey show, wearing their best clothes, outfits, that had been donated by a local church since their entire wardrobe had been lost in the fire. When Steve met them before the show, he was immediately struck by their dignity, grace, and the obvious love they shared after 52 years of marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, I want you to know that your story represents everything that's great about America. Hard work, family values, and never giving up on your dreams. Mr. Harvey, we're just regular people who worked hard and tried to do right by our family, Robert said humbly. That's exactly why you're extraordinary, Steve replied. During the show, Robert and Elena shared their story with the audience. They talked about immigrating to America, working multiple jobs to buy their first home, raising their children, and building a life centered on family and community. Elena, what did that house mean to your family? Steve asked. It was more than a house, Mr. Harvey. It was where we became Americans. It was where our children learned they could achieve anything if they worked hard enough. It was where 5 decades of love lived. Robert, what's been the hardest part about losing your home? The hardest part isn't losing our things, Mr. Harvey. It's knowing that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will never see where their family grew up. We lost the place where our family's history lived. The audience was moved to tears as the couple spoke about their loss with such grace and dignity. What are your plans now? Steve asked. We're trying to figure that out, Elena said honestly. We're too old for a big mortgage, and we don't want to be a burden on our children. Steve stood up with the smile that millions of viewers had come to love. Robert and Elena, what if I told you that you're not going to need a mortgage? The couple looked confused. What do you mean, Mr. Harvey? I mean that the Steve Harvey Foundation, along with some very special partners, has been working on a surprise for you. Steve turned to address the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert and Elena Martinez represent the best of what America stands for. They came here with nothing, worked their whole lives, raised 4 incredible children, and have been pillars of their community for nearly 5 decades. When their house burned down, they didn't ask for handouts or complain about their situation. They maintained their dignity and continued to support each other with the same love and commitment they've shown for 52 years. Steve turned back to the couple. Robert and Elena, I want you to meet some people who were inspired by your story. A parade of people began walking onto the stage. Contractors, architects, interior designers, and community leaders from San Antonio. These folks have volunteered to completely rebuild your home, free of charge, Steve announced. Robert and Elena stared in shock as Steve continued. Home Depot is donating all the materials. Mendez Construction is providing all the labor. The San Antonio community has raised additional funds for furniture and landscaping, and Elena, local artists are creating photo reproductions of some of your family pictures using images from your children's collections. Elena began crying as the magnitude of what was happening became clear. "You're going to build us a new house?" she whispered. "Not just any house," Steve said. "We're going to build you the house of your dreams, designed specifically for your family's needs and your golden years." But Steve wasn't done with surprises. "Robert and Elena, your children are here. And they have something to show you." Maria, Carlos, Sofia and Miguel came onto the stage carrying architectural plans and a scale model of the proposed new home. "Mom and Dad," Maria said through tears, "we worked with the architects to design a house that honors our family's history while giving you everything you need for the next chapter of your lives." The model showed a beautiful single-story home with a large family room for gatherings, a modern kitchen where Elena could continue making her famous tamales, a workshop where Robert could pursue his woodworking hobby, and a covered patio for outdoor family celebrations. Robert was crying as he looked at the model. "This is more beautiful than anything we ever dreamed of." "Dad, there's one more thing," Miguel said. "The new house is going to be built on the same lot where you raised us. We're not just rebuilding your house, we're rebuilding our family's home." The audience erupted in applause and tears as the elderly couple embraced their children and tried to process the magnitude of what was happening. "How long will this take?" Elena asked. "The construction starts next week," Steve announced. "And in 12 weeks, you'll be moving into your new home just in time for Christmas." The most touching moment came when Steve asked Robert and Elena what they wanted to say to everyone who was making this possible. "We came to America 54 years ago with nothing but hope," Robert said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Today we see that America is still the land where miracles happen, where communities take care of each other, and where strangers become family." Elena added, "We always taught our children that when you work hard and treat people right, good things will come back to you. Today we learned that lesson ourselves." 12 weeks later, Robert and Elena Martinez walked into their new home for the first time. The house was everything they had been promised, and more, beautifully designed, fully furnished, and filled with reproduced family photographs and new furniture chosen specifically for their comfort and needs. But the most beautiful surprise was waiting in the backyard, a vegetable garden that volunteers had planted, knowing that Elena loved to grow tomatoes and peppers for her cooking. "It's perfect," Elena said, walking through each room and marveling at the craftsmanship and attention to detail. "It's like a dream." The housewarming party was attended by over 200 people, family members, neighbors, volunteers who had worked on the construction, and Steve Harvey himself. "Robert and Elena," Steve said during the celebration, "this house is more than wood and nails. It's a testament to the American dream and proof that when communities come together, we can accomplish miracles." 6 months later, Robert and Elena returned to the Steve Harvey Show to share how their lives had been transformed. "How does it feel to be back in your own home?" Steve asked. "Mr. Harvey, we wake up every morning grateful," Elena said. "Not just for the house, but for being reminded that there are still good people in the world who care about strangers." "What's the best part about the new house?" "The best part is that our family is together again," Robert said. "Last month, we hosted our first big family celebration in the new house, our great-grandson's first birthday. 3 generations gathered in our home again, just like the old days." "Robert and Elena, what would you tell other people who might be facing similar tragedies?" "We would tell them not to give up hope," Elena said. "Even when everything seems lost, there are people who care and want to help. You just have to keep believing." Today, the Martinez home is once again the center of family gatherings and community celebrations. Robert has resumed his woodworking in his new workshop, creating furniture for his grandchildren. Elena continues to make tamales for family celebrations, using her new kitchen that accommodates her aging hands and back. The story of their home reconstruction inspired similar projects across the country, with communities organizing to help other families who had lost homes to fires, floods, and other disasters. Steve keeps a photo from the day Robert and Elena first walked into their new home on his desk. It reminds him daily that sometimes the greatest television moments happen when cameras capture real people receiving the help they deserve. Robert and Elena Martinez taught me that the American dream isn't about getting rich or becoming famous, Steve often says. It's about working hard, taking care of your family, and building a community where people look out for each other. The Martinez family home has become a symbol of hope and community spirit in San Antonio, proving that when people come together with generous hearts, they can rebuild more than just houses, they can rebuild faith in humanity itself. If this incredible story of community generosity and rebuilding dreams moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that good things happen to good people and that communities can come together to create miracles. Have you ever been part of a community effort to help someone in need? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the power of generosity and the beauty of the human spirit.